Welcome to the podcast for Healing Neurology, where we talk about everything that can help heal your neurology, which is really everything from food, lifestyle, and medicine to nature, culture, and politics. There's no topic too big or too small. I'm Jillian Ehrlich, family nurse practitioner, certified in Ayurveda and functional medicine. And today we have with us my old friend, Kael Balizer. She has maintained a successful practice as an Ayurvedic practitioner, serving hundreds of clients over the past 20 years. She received her degree in pre-medical biology at New Mexico State University, and then attended the New Mexico School of Natural Therapeutics, where she was introduced to Ayurveda. She then went on to study under the world-renowned Vaidya Dr. Vasant Lad at the Ayurvedic Institute in Albuquerque, which is also where I studied. She's the co-founder of Life in Balance Ayurvedic Rejuvenation Center and has taught Ayurvedic classes throughout studios and schools in Washington, including Bastyr University and Brannicky Massage School. She leads women's retreats, offers online courses, Ayurvedic consultations, and group cleanse programs, and EFT tapping sessions, emotional freedom technique. And she offers these online and in person at her center on Vashon Island, although not during the pandemic, but she will at some point, and that's essentially what we're talking about today. In Ayurveda, the word for health is svasthya, which essentially means to return to oneself. Through her own personal journey, she has found this key to one's deepest transformation. In her one-on-one 3-month intensive coaching program, she guides women in the unfolding of their healing and moment-to-moment returning to themselves. Her work focuses on the integral connection between the body, mind, and emotions. Using Ayurvedic practices and EFT, she has found these most effectively facilitate physical and emotional healing by getting to the deep root of the issue and healing the nervous system. That's what we're all about. She is committed to bringing her clients to the place of experiencing love and acceptance for themselves and living joyfully, awake and fulfilled in the difference they make in their families and in their world. Kael, welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Thanks, Jillian. It's good to be here.
So let's talk about this EFT, this emotional freedom technique, this tapping. Walk us through kind of what this is and how it came about.
Okay, well, EFT, emotional freedom technique. So there's many techniques you can use, but there's a basic technique that we're going to learn today, and it's an evidence-based. There's so much research being done now to prove its efficacy and how impactful it is on regulating our system for so many things, for reducing cortisol, for helping our mental state de-escalate our emotions, helping with PTSD, so many things we can go into. It was started by Gary Craig, developed EFT, and he was a student of Dr. Callahan. And Dr. Callahan he was working with a client that he could not make any progress with. She was terrified of the water. So nothing worked. Talk therapy, everything they were doing didn't have any results. And then he found some information about energy medicine, how the meridian system from Chinese medicine, right? If you're familiar with acupressure points or using needles on these points. So he found a point that was related to fear. And so he simply had her, they were by a pool, he simply had her start tapping on that point. And within a few minutes, she said, "I'm not afraid anymore." And he was like, "What?" And she actually went and got in the water. Now, so Gary Craig, he took that information as his student and he developed a whole protocol of tapping at certain points throughout the body to deal with any issues that we don't even have to know, like, oh, this affects this meridian or this channel of the body, but just tapping through all of these points and saying a basic statement that we're going to learn can help us to balance our emotional system in any moment. Which is Great. So what we're needing right now, right, Jillian?
Yes. Is anything wrong in the world? Is anything confusing and emotional right now? Anything?
Yeah.
And we're doing this talk today. I'm so glad to have you as a guest because as you and I have known each other for a long, long time, and a lot of our work has overlapped over these last 2 decades we've known each other. But I've more recently learned EFT from you and have started using it some with patients. And what I find is that it's one of those things that can be used at any moment, in any moment, to create a physiological change, to create a change in perspective. We have to remember that when we get so anxious, we can get so tightened down and so afraid, and our thinking gets very inflexible. We think only one thing will save us or we're destined for disaster. And if we can't get out of that, if we can't make our thinking more flexible, then we're kind of toast. And so my experience has been that using EFT with clients and using it personally has helped make people's thinking more flexible so that they can actually make choices in their day.
Yeah.
What do you find tapping is good for? What kind of conditions, or what kind of, I know that you're
Well,
not diagnosing, you're not a psychologist,
yeah.
but
Yeah. Can I just say one thing about what you said? Just
please do.
that what this does when we tap on these points, it actually sends a calming signal to the amygdala, because these points are connected to channels throughout our whole body. So when we experience an event, we don't experience it in our head, we experience it in our body. We have a chemical reaction, right? Cortisol are flooded with these chemicals in our body. And so when we tap on these points, whether it's thinking about the event or thinking about the thing, or in the midst of it, of the upset or panic or whatever it is, fear or worry, that when we tap on these points, it sends this calming signal to that fight or flight part of the brain, the amygdala, and it brings us back into that frontal lobe where it's our creative center. So yeah, when we're in survival, all we can do is survive. There's no creative thinking. There's no new possibilities available. So if we think like, what can this help with? I'm just thinking recently, like working with insomnia, right? Because that's a lot about our mind going, even if it's physiological hormone balance, right? When we're in that state of stress, our hormones get dysregulated. Thinking about pain in the body. I was just tapping yesterday with someone that had a lot of pain. And a lot of times that pain, the root cause might be in some event, but just starting with the pain, and then those subconscious events will start to come up with what they're actually holding in that body part. But just tapping through the points, the pain was decreased. Maybe fear, of course, fear, anxiety that we're all dealing with, these feelings in the body. I think a lot of people right now are dealing with just this kind of pervasive sense of anxiety, or right, body sensations of holding our breath and not being able to think as clearly as we'd want, being reactivated is happening. So to help us in those reactive moments. Yeah, so much more. I also work with a whole group of people that are entrepreneurs. So I'm the mindset coach for that. I work with people on their blocks. So any kind of limiting beliefs we might have about ourselves, about our bodies that get in the way, those actually get in the way. It's like anything emotional or from our past that we're holding, that we're not expressing, is creating an interference in our body system. And so through tapping these points, I love this thought, is we get our energy to flow. And usually at the root of any chronic illness or chronic pattern is the energy is blocked in the system, right? So tapping is the quickest way I know to get our energy moving.
When is it appropriate to tap? When should a person tap, or when might a person consider doing this?
The quickest way for clients when I tell them to tap between sessions is anytime an emotion comes up, anytime a thought comes up that might be a limiting belief or wherever they're working on. So if it can become a pattern, instead of, trying to run away from the feeling, a lot of times we busy ourselves when we're in that place of discomfort with emotion. And so, oh yeah, that's another area that I work with a lot with people. I'm doing a cleanse right now with a group of people, and that's people's unconscious eating patterns or addictions are a big one that EFT works with. So instead of doing these things to ease ourselves, we can just go to the points and start tapping. And so anytime we're in the midst of it, but also if you have something big, if there's an issue that's chronic, if there's some PTSD, if there's something, an event that have not found completion with, then actually taking time either with a practitioner or with yourself daily to just tap on it.
You do sessions. What does it look like for you to work with people? How often do you see them? How long is a session?
Yeah, my sessions are an hour. And a lot of times starting out working with people, we work once a week. But it depends on what they're dealing with. I just worked with a woman who had been in a car accident and had some PTSD. So we did some weekly sessions until that cleared. And it only took about 3 sessions. But it just depends how old the issue is. So it can take a little bit longer. So I've been working with people on Zoom. So it looks kind of like this and a little bit of what we're going to do today.
All right. Well, let's dive in and let's see what a session looks like. Walk me through it. Walk us through it.
All right. Well, the first thing I want to do is teach you the points, and then we'll get started. So for everyone listening or watching, you can tap along with us, because just tapping on these points, and I also just want to mention, Jillian, since we're both Ayurvedic based, is that these are also Ayurvedic Marma points, which are vital energy points. So Ayurveda also uses energy points that are connected to the external part of the body to liberate energy and intelligence and information that's in the body to open up these channels. So as an Ayurvedic practitioner, I think of it from that perspective, but I wanted to honor the base of which it came from Chinese medicine. So tapping the side of the hand here on the pinky side, and we can just breathe while we start to tap. So yeah, just tapping. And I tell people, don't worry about what to say. So after this today, if you just tap, that's great. You will notice a difference. And here's where you do the setup statement. And the setup statement looks like, even though I have this fear, even though I have this worry, anxiety, the more specific we can get what the event is, the deeper the results. But today we're going to go a little bit general for everyone to find themselves, right? So even though, and then the last part, even though I have this fear, finding it in the body, and I can feel it in my stomach, I deeply and completely accept myself. And that's the traditional, that's what Gary Craig coined as the phrase, and that's we've done most of the testing on, the research has been done on. But I've been finding that that's, for people starting out, it's kind of difficult to say I deeply and completely accept myself, especially if you're dealing with something big and you're not in a space of acceptance, right? So the thing that really works for me and my clients is I'm open to accepting myself. I'm open, and they're like, because you want to find a phrase that's not going to have too much resistance. You're saying I deeply and completely accept myself. Well, that's a whole nother area to work on, right? So, but I'm open to accepting myself, and people go, oh yeah, I am open. I'm open to that, and I'm open to, all of these feelings. I'm open to accepting myself and the way I feel are all of these feelings. So there's different ways. If someone's dealing with PTSD, right, or some kind of traumatic, or just in general, even if the issue's not that, but there's this sort of sense of not being safe, it might be right here, right now, I am safe. And just saying that statement makes it okay to feel the feelings, right? So we're kind of oscillating between here's this feeling that I'm feeling, and then this empathy. So giving ourselves that own self-empathy that we're okay, it's okay to feel them, and right there the body starts coming into a state of relaxation. So that's the first point, and then we'll go through it. But then the second point is the top of the head. So just finding, your four or five fingers, tapping them. You could tap, all over to get. And then the next point is here at the inner side of the brow. So you can take two hands and tap them both. It's right at the inside where the eyebrows come together. Or you can take one hand and just tap there.
So, and you're tapping kind of right between the brows or a little bit higher?
Right. So where the eyebrows come together, right there where the end point is, it's right there. Okay. Yeah, it's not in the middle, but it's right on the edges, right at those two. So if I take a few fingers there, I'll hit both sides.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the next point, if you follow the eyebrows along here, you'll come to the side of the eye, and we're vibrating bone. You're tapping right there along the side of the eye. And some of these points, like this one, is a point that people naturally rub when they're stressed.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah, just rubbing this point helps us breathe deeper, calms our system. Even this one here between the eyes, people rub this part here, right, to relax themselves or when they have stress. And then following along here, along the bottom of the eye, tapping.
And how long do you tap on each point for?
There's no certain, at the beginning, they found a certain, you had to do a certain number. Now that we've tapped into this field of people tapping more, it's not so specific. It's whatever feels good, but maybe six to 10 times, but don't count it. Just if it feels good. And then coming here under the nose. And some points you'll find just feel really good. Like they feel good, and you just want to keep tapping them. Stay there longer. You can even just when you feel stressed, you can find that one point that feels good and tap on that. You don't have to tap on every point to have the results. Tapping here on the cleft of the chin. So as long as we're tapping, that's about good. And then tapping here under the collarbone. So finding the collarbone, and then this midpoint of the collarbone coming down on the soft tissue and just tapping there.
And when you're in a session, are you repeating that initial set statement?
No, these are called the reminder phrases. So we're reminding the body what we're tapping on. So generally, we're just saying the emotion. You could say, for a simple basic setup, it's just this fear, this anxiety, this worry. And if you want to, remind the body more, this worry about whatever, or this worry, I can feel it in my stomach. So we're just giving a little reminder to the body. We don't have to do the full setup. And then the next one is under the arms. So you can reach around. This feels really good, actually, to just take an arm over the shoulder like a little bit of a self-hug, and then reaching the arm under and just where your bra strap would be or aligned with your breast, tapping there on the side of the body. And then a point that's very powerful that's not often, if you look at videos, they don't show it, but I always use it, is under the breast on the rib cage. So you can take both hands and just tapping, and you could also just take one hand in the middle, right? Because also in those Marma points reflects the liver and the spleen. A lot about the liver holds anger. So a lot of times we're not necessarily conscious or able to bring our anger up, but the body will. The body, through these points, will help liberate whatever emotions are being held. So how are you feeling right now, just having tapped that one round?
I know. I feel relaxed.
I do too. I'm like, all of a sudden, like, I just feel like I'm present with you in a way that I wasn't.
How do you pick about, like, how would you recommend for people who maybe have current things that are scary, but then have old trauma? How do people pick what to tap about? Like, do you tap what's up, or do you try to go for like always the root cause? Or
I would say if someone's tapping on their own, just tap on what's in the moment. With trauma, especially big T traumas, right? We shouldn't do that alone, because that can re-traumatize us by doing it alone. So just having someone else there to help regulate us is useful. And of course, a lot of those traumas happened in isolation. So having another body present with you in the process, and also someone to just help you keep you safe if you start to go back into it. You know, and if it feels big, keep your eyes open. A lot of people like to shut their eyes when they're tapping. But if you're starting to relive it in our body, then you want to just open your eyes and notice that you're safe. But yeah, just for now, for people listening, just tapping in the moment is most useful. And if you have some big things you want to go back and look at. But that said, say a minute ago, you just had an interaction with your husband, right? And you're in the car and you're like, you could say, even though I feel really angry that he said blah, 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 right? That he said he didn't care. I'm open to accepting myself and all of these feelings, even though I feel really angry and I feel my face is red and I just want to bite its head off, right? so that right there. So yeah, so the events, the current events and things that have happened, if we can imagine, if we could just, instead of holding that all day, if you could just take a minute to release that, what a difference it would make.
Can you talk a little bit about what do we do with the feelings that come up when we have been wronged, when something is unjust, or when, you know, there's a way that I think somehow in our culture we feel justified. There are emotions that are justifiable. Why not just hold on to those because they're right? Like if somebody has hurt you, why not hold on to those feelings because they're like, you've been hurt? Yeah,
well, the thing is, holding the emotions in our body affects us, right? Actually blocks those channels, blocks the flow of energy, creates pain and tension in our body. And so that impact is over here with us. So a lot of times, yeah, it's like, well, I mean, all our emotions are justified. And it's not like this isn't a route or a tool to suppress them, but to actually liberate them from our bodies. So it's like rage and anger. Good. Express all that anger. It's not about getting somewhere even. I think early in tapping, I was all about getting someone done with their anger, done with their, right? And there will be a shift. There's cognitive shifts that happen, and we can redirect it in a way that makes sense so that we could actually communicate it rather than holding it in our own bodies, creating illness and pain.
I love how you address that the feelings that we feel don't necessarily impact other people. So if we have been wronged by another person, our anger is not necessarily a punishment to them. It doesn't necessarily balance out the situation, so that by looking at our emotions and feeling them fully is how we protect ourselves and how we make ourselves essentially immune or tolerant or have capacity for whatever happens around us. And I think that's really important in the world that we have today, because there's a lot of hurt that happens. And so a lot of big feelings can be justified. There's so much injustice and racism, economic inequality. And so there's a lot of reasons to have big feelings. There's a lot of reasons to be pissed off or to be hurt or to be angry, to be furious. But to remember that those emotions, we need to channel those into action to correct the injustices, but that our anger may continue to hurt us.
Yeah.
So it's better that we can process it the better off, the more effective our behavior can be.
Yeah, and with those emotions, like you said, so we can channel it into action. When we are in the survival center of our brain, which is in that reactive state, there's no creative thinking. There's no way to actually take action.
Yeah.
We're just stuck in that loop of upset or emotion. So by tapping it, we start to liberate and get into that frontal lobe so that we can take the action.
We can think.
Whatever that is. We can think, yeah. So it brings back our thinking really fast.
So for people who, some patients I see, I'm thinking of one in particular, even sitting in the office with me, I can tell that they are literally paralyzed with fright, paralyzed with panic about their life. It seems like, is tapping something that they could just, do every 20 minutes ongoing until emotions come down? Yeah,
they could just tap. They could just find that point and tap for sure. I don't know many people that are going to tap although actually I had a woman in a class that I taught who had so much PTSD and panic attacks and just so much traumatic, but she took on tapping every time something arose.
Yeah.
Every time. And it became a habit. And after 20 years of seeking help for this reactivity in her body, she finally got to the source of being the one who could re-regulate, that could calm her system. And she said if she was driving along and someone up came behind her and it reactivated her like an old memory, she'd just pull over and start tapping.
That's great.
And you can tap while you're driving, but maybe not if you're really heightened reactive. You may not want to do that, but it's actually my favorite time to tap.
Oh, that's great. That's a great idea. And there is a lot of research that's happening to support tapping. For the last 20 years or more, 30 years, there's actually been quite a bit of research on tapping. And there is a great website you shared with me. So it's EFT-tapping-EFT-EFT-science-research. So long, but at EFTinternational.org, there is a page for research. So, and they list all of the articles going back, I think to somewhere in the 1990s. And there's been between 4 and I think 24 articles published per year about the impact of EFT.
There's a woman I love that's doing a lot of research. She's probably doing the most research around EFT there is. She's a PhD in psychology, and she's in Australia, and her name is Peta Stapleton.
Peta Stapleton.
Yeah, and she's just doing so much amazing research.
Great.
And can I share just a couple little researches that I love that just
please
highlight the efficacy of. One is that whole idea of lowering cortisol. So they found in a triple blind study, which means that nobody knew they were even using these different methodologies. Even the people testing the results didn't know what they were using it for. But they did talk therapy with one group. Another group, they just did just relaxation. And then the other group, they did EFT. And so I don't know that anything moved on talk therapy. There was very little movement in the levels of cortisol. So they'd actually checked cortisol levels before and after. And with the EFT, it was 24%.
Wow.
In one session. And that is huge.
Wow.
In terms of positive results. So, yeah. And cortisol creates so much challenges in our body. It's such a physical impact when we're running cortisol, which we usually are most of the time. So yeah, tapping all the time, Jillian, would probably be really helpful.
And 2020, the year of the tap.
Yeah, another quick study that I love that I think about that makes me tap is they took a blood samples of people, and they looked at it and looked at the flow of the blood. And they could see that it was in places in people that were, I think they were people that were sick, but the blood was clumping, so it wasn't moving along well. And then they tapped for 5 minutes, and they tested the blood again, and it was free flowing.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, so we can impact our physiology so quickly, even if you don't know what to say.
Great. Well, if you would send me those 2 articles, I'll put them up with our podcast description. Okay. And if you are interested in seeing Kael for tapping, I highly recommend it. So many patients have gotten so much benefit. Her website is www.ayurvedaseattle.com, AYURVEDA, Seattle.com. Any final thoughts?
Well, I don't know how much time we have, Jillian, but would you want to do a round of tapping so everyone can experience the benefit? We showed the points and we tapped, but we didn't actually tap into an experience.
Oh, yeah.
If we have time today. If not, I'd love to come back.
Let's come back. Let's do it again.
Okay.
And hopefully this is something that we can offer not only for patients, but also as a group as we grow and kind of evolve our practice at our clinic. I would love to have you lead some groups and lead some sessions and do a lot more support for our patients, because our patients really need it, and you're so fantastic, Kael.
Oh, thanks, Jillian. I would be honored. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So thank you everybody today for listening with Kael Balizer. We've got lots of ways to continue this conversation through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also get more information from and about us at our website, centerforhealingneurology.com. Even better, come see us in person or via video at our Seattle clinic. Please be sure to share this show with your friends, and we welcome your rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, your YouTube videos, your Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of that. And feel free to send topic requests to podcast@centerforhealingneurology.com. We love that you've joined us today to discuss how to make our whole world medicine. We rise or fall together, and we're committed to doing what we can to make as many of us as healthy as possible. And this takes all of us, including you. Thank you for listening.
Partyfish Media.
Partyfish Media acknowledges that it operates and records on indigenous Duwamish and Puget Sound Coast Salish land that is still home to the Duwamish tribe. This land is stolen in violation of the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. We are committed to uplifting the name of these lands and community members from these nations who reside alongside us. For more information on this land, its people, or ways you can help, visit duwamishtribe.org or realrentduwamish.org.